Welcome to Phi-Wisdom, the channel that helps you see the world through the lens of philosophy and critical thinking. Today, we're tackling a concept that is essential if we want to understand our frustrations, our anxieties, and our struggles in modern society. Alienation, according to Karl Marx. Have you ever felt like your life doesn't fully belong to you, as if you were just following a path that has already been mapped out for you, without any real control over your own destiny? Have you ever wondered why so many people feel empty, disconnected, or as if they're simply going through the motions every day? Well, Marx believed that this feeling of disconnection is not just a personal problem. It's not just something that happens inside your mind. It's actually the result of a much larger system, a structure that forces people to become strangers to themselves. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss future videos on philosophy and society. And if you want to explore this topic in depth, you'll find a book link in the description to help you dig deeper, while also supporting the channel. Let's get started. Chapter 1. Who was Karl Marx, and why did he talk about alienation? Karl Marx was a philosopher, economist, and sociologist who dedicated his life to analyzing how economic and social structures shape human experience. He is most famous for his critique of capitalism and his influence on socialist and communist thought, but his ideas go far beyond just politics or economics. Unlike some thinkers who focus on individual psychology, Marx was interested in the bigger picture. He wanted to understand why, in a modern capitalist society, so many people feel a deep sense of dissatisfaction. He believed that this wasn't just a coincidence. It wasn't because people were naturally unhappy, or because they weren't working hard enough to find purpose. Instead, he argued that the system itself produces this disconnection, making individuals feel like they have no real power over their own lives. This leads us to the concept of alienation, a process that Marx saw as one of the defining features of modern society. But what exactly does he mean by this? Chapter 2. What is alienation? The word alienation comes from the Latin alienare, meaning to make foreign or strange. In everyday language, we might say that someone feels alienated when they don't feel at home in their own life, when they feel like something is off, like they are disconnected from what should be meaningful to them. For Marx, this wasn't just an emotional state. It was a structural condition, something that society itself produces, particularly under capitalism. He identified 4 key forms of alienation, and each one shows a different way in which individuals become estranged from their own existence. First, alienation through work, when you no longer own what you create. One of the most basic ways people experience alienation is through their work. Marx argued that, in a capitalist system, workers do not own the products they create. Instead, everything they make is taken away, sold on the market, and used to generate profits for someone else. The worker, therefore, has no real connection to the results of their own labor. Think about this for a moment. Imagine a factory worker who spends 10 hours a day assembling furniture. He carefully builds chairs and tables, but at the end of the day, he doesn't get to keep any of them. He doesn't get to decide how they will be used, who will buy them, or what price they will be sold for. All he knows is that he has completed his shift and will receive a wage. The final product, the very thing he spent hours creating, belongs to someone else. But it doesn't stop there. Because the worker has no control over what he produces, he might even feel indifferent to it. He doesn't need to feel proud of his work, he just has to get it done, because that's the only way he can earn money to survive. Over time, this detachment becomes so strong that work stops being an expression of creativity or skill. It just becomes a means of survival, something to endure rather than something to take pride in. This is what Marx meant by alienation from the product of labor. The worker is cut off from what he creates, and as a result, he feels like his own efforts have nothing to do with him. Secondly, alienation from the work itself, when work becomes meaningless. But alienation isn't just about what we produce, it's also about the experience of working itself. For Marx, labor should be something natural and fulfilling. Ideally, when we work, we should feel like we are expressing our talents, developing our skills, and creating something that matters. But under capitalism, work rarely feels this way. Instead, it is often repetitive, exhausting, and disconnected from any deeper meaning. Think about a modern customer service employee who spends their entire day reading scripted lines on the phone, answering the same questions over and over again. This person doesn't have the freedom to make decisions. They don't get to use their creativity. They don't even have the chance to interact with customers in a genuine way, because everything they say is dictated by corporate policy. This kind of job doesn't just take up time, it drains the worker of their energy and individuality. Instead of feeling like a person who is actively shaping the world, they start to feel like a machine following a program. This is what Marx called alienation from the act of labor. The experience of work itself becomes something unnatural, something that reduces us rather than fulfilling us. Thirdly, alienation from other people when society turns us into competitors. Alienation doesn't just separate people from their work, it also separates people from each other. In a capitalist society, Marx argued, relationships are often defined by competition rather than cooperation. Instead of seeing each other as allies, people start to see one another as obstacles. Take the example of students in a competitive school system. Instead of learning for the sake of knowledge, students are often forced to see education as a race. Their goal is no longer to understand subjects deeply or develop a true passion for learning, but to outperform their classmates. If they fail, it's not just a matter of not understanding the material. It can mean losing a scholarship, disappointing their family, or facing limited career opportunities. In this kind of environment, friendships and social bonds suffer. People stop sharing knowledge with each other, and instead, they hoard information because they don't want their classmates to gain an advantage. In the end, what should be a collective journey of growth turns into an isolated, anxious struggle for survival. This is what Marx meant by alienation from others, a system that pits people against each other, rather than encouraging genuine human connection. Chapter 3. Can we escape alienation? For Marx, the only real way to end alienation was to change the system itself, to create a society where work is meaningful, where people have control over what they produce, and where human relationships are based on cooperation instead of competition. But even within the current system, there are ways to resist alienation. Firstly, find work that aligns with your values and creativity, not just something that pays the bills. Secondly, build genuine relationships based on trust and solidarity, instead of treating others as rivals. Thirdly, stay conscious of how the system influences your feelings, so you don't blame yourself for problems that are actually systemic. The key is to stay aware, stay connected, and never stop questioning the world around you. Conclusion: taking back control over our lives. Alienation isn't just a theory, it's something we experience every day. The question is, will we accept it, or will we fight to regain control over our lives? If this video made you think differently, like and subscribe to Phi-Wisdom for more deep dives into philosophy and society. Check the description for book recommendations to go even further. Thank you for watching, and remember, true freedom begins with awareness.